Hi, I'm Rob Durham, and today I'm going to talk about whether you need to move to a different city to advance your comedy career.
He tours clubs and colleges all over. He's just published his third book. Give a nice big round of applause for Rob Durham.
There are a lot of reasons why moving is a good idea. If you're in a smaller town that doesn't have a comedy club, you've got to find somewhere, unless you're running your own room, giving you plenty of stage time, which probably isn't the case. You got to get to somewhere bigger that has at least one comedy club. The more clubs, the better, obviously, more open mic opportunities and working opportunities. So I moved to St. Louis in 2005. There were around 4 or 5 clubs that were working very well back then. Once you're able to establish a home club, hopefully you're going to get some work in there. It's important that each local scene has some mentoring in it, whether it be a headliner or some feature acts that have been around a while, someone that cares and can actually kind of offer some real advice. I know when I moved into St. Louis, we had, it was quite a crop of advice givers. Greg Warren, Andy Smith, Tommy Johnigan, Nikki Glazer. These were all people on the same open mic. And advice was never too far away. Another reason you may want to move is if there's a scene that has a lot more mentoring in it. If you have no headliners or professionals in your scene, it's kind of hard to get advice. You need kind of role models to help you build up your act. When I moved to St. Louis, Greg Warren was around. Nikki Glazer was still an amateur open micer. Tommy Johnigan was at open mic. We had quite an arsenal of comics that developed through there. So if there's a city that develops a lot of comics that come out of it, that's a good place to move. Another thing to consider is the manager of the comedy club. Do you get along with that manager? If it's someone you've burned a bridge with, get out of that city. You're never going to get work. Are they the kind of manager that actually watches open mic and cares about improving the local talent, or do they bring in out-of-town guys just to host? So, one of the reasons I left Columbus is they kind of stopped using locals to MC. There was kind of a house MC every week, and a lot of us locals lost a lot of stage time because of that. So it was unfortunate, but it was the right move for me. Another thing to look at, are there enough one-nighter opportunities around? In my city, there's plenty of, Elks Lodges and fundraisers and all kinds of things within a 50-mile radius. So, right across the river in Illinois is another, urban area. So there are plenty of gigs outside of comedy clubs that you can have around St. Louis. So I'm not saying you have to move to St. Louis, but look for cities, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Louisville, things that have a comedy club within them, but aren't too far isolated from the rest of the country. I always feel bad for those guys in Austin. They have an amazing scene down there, but how can they drive all over the Midwest in several hours? We have the advantage here in the Midwest of being able to get pretty much anywhere within 6 or 8 hours, if not shorter than that. Another thing that can happen at your home club is you can get pigeonholed as the MC. They're always going to remember your first year or two, and it's hard to get out of that MC pigeonhole. They never want to bump you up to feature act. It's very frustrating, and they refuse to admit that you're actually improving. So for some reason, you got to move. That's just the saying is, it's hardest to get promoted in your home club, and I believe that. So again, that's another reason I moved. Make sure you're going somewhere affordable. If you compare the cost of living in Chicago versus, say, Indianapolis, is it really worth, the stage time difference? Comedy's a thing. It's tough to work a full-time job and have a successful building comedy career. So if you're paying way too much for rent and everything else, cost of living, you may have to downgrade your city somewhere a little smaller than one of the major ones. I think there's always personal reasons people move too. I know I had a few. I know people move to get away from toxic people, maybe exes, drug habits, whatever they got to do to start fresh over. It really, I think when you're comfortable, you get lazy. So get out of your comfort zone, move to a different city, and see if you're really committed to comedy. If people are as committed as they want, you got to leave everything behind. I left my family, my brother, my dad back in Ohio, and a lot of friends that I knew. So it was worth it, but it's quite a sacrifice to up and lift everything to a different city. A lot of comics ask, should they move to LA or New York? I would say probably not, especially in the first few years. Nick Griffin told me LA is where you move once you're a finished product. That's where you go out there to actually get management, and you need to be really refined. You need to have some heat behind you and a lot of years of experience to move out to LA. You're going to lose all your money. The open mic scene is, basically performing in front of other comics. So it is really difficult to make it out there. So I would not suggest moving out to LA. As far as New York, yeah, you're going to increase your stage time, but the cost of living, I mean, you're going to have to give up a lot of comforts in life. You basically live in a shoebox. I think they actually have to pay money to get on a lot of the open mics out there. There aren't a lot of great crowds for that. So unless you're really developed, maybe 5-6 years in, I would say it's probably not a wise decision to move to either of those cities. Chicago as well, I mean, there's maybe more reasonable open mics, but again, it's going to be very expensive. And I don't know, I think a lot of great comics just develop out of the Midwest, and then when they're ready, they'll make it to whichever city works best for them. So again, if you're considering moving, take these things into account. I would suggest living with another comic perhaps, someone that's on the road a lot more so you don't see each other a lot. That's always helpful. For more tips on making it in stand-up comedy, check out my book, Don't Wear Shorts on Stage. It is available on Amazon and Kindle. And be sure to subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions, let me know and I'll try and get to them. And I'll see you next time.